Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. I was off last week, so it's good to be back this week. And we have, as always, lots of things to chat about the economic conditions, what's going on in the job market. And of course, we want to be talking a little bit about this fall hiring push. And part of what we're going to do in the fall hiring push is, we'll discuss, as always, best practices that you want to keep in mind uh, as we go through this push. So, what's the real push? We're probably in a push of about, I don't know, I would say the next 6 weeks, especially as we look at in the US, the push up to that Thanksgiving timeline is really critical. And then there's going to be this little secondary fall push that happens in the first 2 weeks of December. It's a little bit confusing because we always think of December as a month where, well, there's no real hiring going on. But what happens, especially at large companies, is it's a use it or lose it model. We've talked a lot about this. So, in those first 2 weeks in December, at some companies, their philosophy is if you don't hire this year, we reset the budget next year, and maybe you will not have the budget for that position. So, you'll see this kind of push over the next 2 months, and then you'll see this little lag right around Thanksgiving in the US, and then you'll see this last push over the last 2 weeks. So, we're kind of looking at around that 10 weekish, a little bit more time frame to make sure that if this is the time of year that you're looking to get a new job, that you are pushing and pushing appropriately. And obviously, my job and my goal is to make you the hero of your own journey, right? And I'm just here to support you in that journey and becoming that hero. And the hero may be finding a job, it may be changing jobs, it may be leaving your job and going to work for yourself, whatever that might be. So, as we're warming up to this session, I can see people coming in. The warm and fuzzies are always great. I don't know how other live hosts say it, but let me know you can see and hear me okay. That just lets me know that I'm not talking to myself, even though I can see the number count and I know that there are people here. So, where are you visiting from? Visiting from, that sounds funny. What location are you in? Just say hello. Let me know that you can see and hear me. That's always helpful for me as a content creator. And then just know that this is a general Q&A session. I'm here to answer any questions and help with anything and everything. So, I think, okay, Liz, thank you for always being my rock and letting me know you can see and hear me. So, as we warm into this session, obviously, I took last week off from creating long form content, and I think it's time that I introduce to this audience that I am starting to consider winding down the YouTube channel. It's something that I need to think through. I had some time off to do some brainstorming, and that's going to be part of my discovery over the next month or so, is to decide whether I'm going to continue to produce on YouTube. But obviously, I didn't produce last week. I do long form content every Mondays, and then I come live 9 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday. So I'm just thinking through that part of my journey, because some things always need to change and come to an end. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. Obviously, to be the hero of your own journey, especially when it comes to interviews, a little bit of practice helps. And that's why I have my app posted up there. Check it out. We start with the free trial and then of everything, and then we always keep it the freemium model if you just want to use it for free. Also, I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy sessions. And again, the real goal for right now is to continue to think about producing content, and we'll continue to talk about the content journey. And just as you go through your job journey, how do you think about everything you've done? We're about to hit October. So as we hit October of 2025, that marks 7 years on YouTube for me. And so I need to, again, I'm just exploring that journey. And I think anybody who's been on these live sessions knows that I'm going to share everything. We're going to chat about everything in these sessions. And number one and only primary goal is it's you. It's about you. It's about helping you. It's about making sure that you are headed on the best and right journey for you. And I'm just here to support that and answer questions. So again, Any and all questions are on the table. We definitely have started with a pretty strong audience. Maybe that's because I was off last week. So it's a general Q&A. Any questions, any comments, anything that you're seeing in the job market, anything that you're experiencing, I'm happy to chat through. And then, of course, in our downtime, we always have that default, which is the fall hiring push and really discussing the best practices that can potentially land you the job over the next 10 weeks or so. And we'll talk a little bit more about that timeline. So let's dive in. We only have a couple comments. So again, I'm going to encourage you, where are you visiting from? All questions, they're valuable. And it's not just value for you to get your own answer, but it's value for the community because other people are thinking the same things and maybe sometimes they just don't want to say it. Liz Myers, my rock. All right. Hope the weather's okay in Sarasota right now. I'm excited to be here today because I'm in a fresh round of career search, have several applications with referrals, everybody, that are a great fit, and practicing interviews, coding problems, and that you have a quest. Yeah, and so much of, so like, let's highlight just what Liz is, as we're slow, and again, I'm going to keep the push going. All comments and questions and everything's valuable for us to keep this session going, but Liz is highlighting a number of critical items. So have several applications with referrals, right? And so we just want to make sure the application game, you've been here, you've seen me, you've heard me talk about this enough. The straight up application game, it's kind of over, right? And we need to recognize that creative strategies are what's going to really, really matter over the next 10 weeks as you hit this fall hiring push. If it's just easy apply and applying to everything, unfortunately, you're not only competing against others, you're competing against a time clock, you're competing in some cases against bots. Like it's really messy. So I have to encourage everybody, always get creative with your job search. And I'm happy to spend as much time as we need to today discussing that. So Liz is doing referrals and she's practicing, right? And so practicing is such a critical component. If you, again, you're going to hear me, I'm reading this book. And so I'll always thematically tap into what I'm reading. And so much of this is, again, about you being the hero and me just providing a couple little items along the way to support that hero journey. And so that's what I'm here to do. And so the quest is a good way to put it, Liz. I like that. It is a quest. It is a journey. And I know for anybody here, hey, if you're popping on, there's a really good chance you're either you need a job or you're looking for a new job or you're worried about the job market with AI and everything that's happening. And so I'm just here to support you on that journey, on that quest. And so again, that's why I love to talk about the fall hiring push in our downtime, but also just make sure you're getting all your questions answered. Okay. All questions are important. And there are some questions I've answered probably thousands of times. And that's okay because there's going to be somebody else in the audience who needs that answer as well. So how do you approach managing director level people when you're prospecting? I heard about the expansion at some explosives across EU. I can be of help. Seen this movie before. What to say? Yeah, and so Liz and anybody who's here, my default mode is value, right? And so Liz, how are you thinking about being creative? And obviously if like this is something that you can help with, then instead of saying, hey Sue, here's this great article I came across, or here's this great video I came across, you are going to provide very, very specific value that you think you can deliver. And sometimes that's tricky, right? Especially if we're making like a second connection on LinkedIn. Well, we can't add that attachment. So you could say, look, this is not a sales pitch. I'm not saying message me just so I can sell you something. It's like, look, this is the specific angle and the challenge that I know you're going to face in the next 3 months. And here, I want to offer you a solution. I have an attachment. Please let me share it. And by the way, like if I was in job search mode right now, It's expensive. So I just want to keep that in mind. I know budgets can be super, super tight, but I'm not getting paid for this. I just love this tool. I don't do any sponsorships. So contact out. It's 99 bucks a month, but like it's a little plug-in, a little widget, and basically it will give you like with 95% accuracy anybody's email address. So I also like going around LinkedIn and directly emailing people, and then you can find some of that still by googling it, or you can even ask AI if they can find the email address for you. But when you have specific value to give somebody, give it. Don't hold it back, and I think that's going to be a good tactic for you, Liz, moving forward. Thanks for being here, and I always love the ultra human name. It's amazing. I have a very, very close friend who loves to use the word human, and I find myself using it much more often than I did before I met him. I wanted to share my G interview experience. Okay. Just a heads up before I dive in, I watched all your videos and I'm an active sub for maybe 4 or 5 years. Okay, great. And I'm just going to scroll ahead. I won't miss any questions. I'll come back to them. I just want to continue along this story. I cleared my RR1, round one, which was Googliness and GCA. Interviewer was amazing, but in my round two was leadership in RRK. Got rejected in round two, and HR said I'm not well versed with RRK. Okay. The round two interviewer was very rude, was in a rush to her lunch. I gave her all my answers in CFAS and STAR. She didn't ask any follow up questions, but rejected me. I guess it's a luck factor as well now. And I'm sorry. I just want to like say I'm sorry and empathize with that, because that sucks. There are just shitty interviewers. Let's just call it what it is. Like, they don't care. They've lost their way. And it's just a really important point for this audience that's watching now and a future audience. Like, interviewers have lost their way because they've forgotten what it's like to be on your side, to have the anxiety, the stress, the nerves that come with interviews. And then when they show up and they're not engaged and they just roll through it and they get robotic, it's setting you up for failure. And so what do we talk about what do we need to talk about that we never talk about? Luck is such a huge component of job interviews. It's a huge component. So, of course, we can create the systems and the methods and the processes and do the practice, and there's always going to be a luck component to it. And I will tell you right now, like, I share so much of my personal story and journey with Google. I know that there was this major component of luck involved, both when I went through my interviews as a contractor and when I went for my interviews as a full-time employee. As a contractor, the morning of, the entire panel got shifted. I got a message like an hour before, like all the interviewers were getting changed. And then in my first interview, I was interviewing for a sourcer role and a recruiter role. I didn't really want the sourcer role. And the first interview was the sourcer interview, and I completely bombed it. I mean, it was one of my worst interviews. And then I had the 3 recruiter interviews, which got aligned with all people who I ended up working with, liking, and that made it much easier, right? And so I did get very, very lucky. And even as and I know I'm getting long-winded, even as we transition into the full-time, the person who I got for my GCA interview, he really liked it when I wouldn't answer one of the questions because I wanted to take another path. And then in my Googliness interview, which was a separate, just full-time hiring interview, the woman who interviewed me and I decided we were just going to have a conversation. It wasn't even an interview. So like sometimes, well, let's just call it what it is. A lot of the time, you are going to have to get a little lucky with your interviewers too. And of course, all that luck, there is a little bit of dependency on using the cognitive psychology behind what a successful interview looks like and how the brain works. And then we just we're going to have that component of luck. I'm really sorry to hear that happened. And you can always give feedback. Just say, the interview was rushed. This person clearly wanted to get over with it. They only interviewed me for this amount of time. You can always send that feedback, and it's something that I recommend. I'm sorry to hear that. At this point, I have nothing to lose. I found a couple of people to contact. My question is how to do it. You've got great communication skills, and I want to hear you riff this one. Hashtag questions. Okay, so everything obviously comes with the pitch and tone. And one of I don't want to say like don't use AI. Like definitely use AI to like help the creativity of your messaging, but then remove AI because it has specific things now. Like if anything's written in AI, there's like one funny thing that I always catch is like it's a statement. It's like a statement and then the overstated second half of the sentence. AI does that a lot. So it's just you see it enough and you kind of can see the patterns. So really genuine and authentic, Liz. I think I would even say like don't even use AI, but so much of it is talking about opportunity. So again, we all know, or most of the people who are here know my fake go-to person is Sue. So Sue, I see a tremendous opportunity in your business, and I've seen it with others. And this is not a sell, this is just value. Here are three items that I see where I think if they were implemented and simply implemented, would provide tremendous value for your business. Sharing is caring. Thanks, Liz. And so I do this a lot. A lot of what I do, and I just want to be very clear. I'm a value first person, and sometimes that can be extremely painful with an end goal. So it's just value, value, value. And yeah, like 90 whatever percent of people never respond to that value I give, but it's specific to. So it's not like just this cookie cutter, like you should do these three things. Your ABC Corp, if you did A, B, and C based on what I see on your social media or based on what I see on your business plan or based on what I see on X, I make it very, very specific to that person or business or both. Because if it's not specific, it just feels like a generic message you send to everybody. And by the way, doesn't mean that we can't repurpose stuff from one person to another. But Liz, I love specificity. So here's what happens. Like, okay, so I get a lot of spam, right? A lot of spam. My email address is public, right? So I'm just going to get crushed with spam. So it's like, Jeff, I saw X video from practice interviews and you're really helping people with their interview skills. And we have these solar panels that also help people with their war, like it's not relevant. And yeah, anything can like any data now can pull out one of my videos and say it helps people, but that's not really specific to me. I know they haven't put in any time and effort. And so the way that I build connections and build relationships is just through effort. And most of that effort doesn't go anywhere, but a little bit is what you're looking for. I hope that helps, but let's continue to work on it. Elaine from Dayton. You applied to a senior TPM role on September 20th, received an invitation to take the GHA on the 23rd. I learned I passed on the 24th, but haven't heard anything since. Yeah, this is, they could do, it's just amazing in life, right? And the reason why I'm pausing and laughing is just because in life, like everything is just much harder than it needs to be, and we can really simplify it. And so, what Google should be doing is there should be like a pop-up and say, this GHA just identifies you as a potential candidate. It doesn't mean we are going to ever speak to you. It doesn't mean we're ever going to talk to you. Of course, the language wouldn't sound like that, but that's really what it is. They see you as a potential fit. And so anybody they see as a potential fit, they'll send the GHA to. It's still not a high percentage, but it doesn't mean anything. You have to pass it, but just because you pass it does not mean interviews. And there's no indication of anything. You'll just check back at a certain point and you'll see that your application has been closed. Usually when you don't hear back in a pretty timely manner, unfortunately, it means they're not moving forward. But really a gold standard is kind of like that 2 to 4 weeks. If you don't hear back in 2 to 4 weeks, it means they've moved on with others. So we're only hitting that like 1 week. So you still have time, but yeah, passing the GHA does not guarantee interviews, and they should be much clearer in their messaging. And it's just, again, for $1 trillion company, it's shocking that they don't have somebody working on these communications. But remember, people operations and hiring, it's not a primary focus of any of these organizations. HR, people ops, recruiting, they're always last. Last to get money, last to get resources, last to be improved. And by the way, like, Google's hiring process needed to be improved when I started there 12 plus years ago, and it still looks the same. Hi from Bulgaria. Thanks for being here late. Applied on a middle position, account executive, but didn't go further after the second interview. What advice would you give me to reapply, consider another position, or try again for the same? For entry-level positions, you're overqualified. Yeah, and so again, like, that kind of path, the typical path is kind of an AS, an account strategist, very entry level, like a couple of years plus of experience. It doesn't mean that they don't take on more. So probably, if your experience not right, an account manager, maybe not at the level of criteria, but an account manager could be more like 3 to 5, 5 to 10 years even. And then account executive could probably, usually that's kind of 5+ years. So if you're willing to maybe look at account manager roles, that could be an easy way to get back into the process quickly, because it's not an account executive role. For an account executive role, typically, it's about a year wait, but that's not a hard line. So it could be 6 months, it could be 9 months. It's really up to you and where you're at in your career and your willingness to get in there. I mean, the path, you probably shouldn't go for an account strategist role. It sounds like your experience. So an account manager to an account executive can be a very, very quick leap. So it's really up to you and how long you want to wait, or how long you're willing to wait to get back in. And just all I'll say is, they say you need to wait X amount of time. It doesn't mean you need to, but typically for the same role, same location, or similar role, similar location, it's typically a year. Thanks for the specifics, Jeff. That helps focus my thinking. Next 3 months, see challenges you may face, offer ideas. Did I get that right? Language, hypothetical message, my skills can help. Not in the first message, Liz. Like, so I know that this is like, oh, this is brutal, right? It's brutal to not try and push our agenda on somebody early, but the goal is, like, I don't want to work with anybody who doesn't get that my agenda isn't value first. And if they don't get it, like, okay, well, that's probably not going to be somebody I want to work with or work for, right? So the big item is the rule of 3, and obviously keeping it as simplistic as possible, because you can't overwhelm them. And humans really work really well in the rule of 3. So that's just my default mode to you, and my default coaching is just use that rule of 3. And if it's less than 3, okay, but don't go over 3 concepts or ideas. Our brains just are not really struggle with more than 3 concepts at a time. And that's been proven many times by much smarter people than me. And so just something I would recommend. But yeah, it's my skills can help. That's about you. And so the value first, that's about them, right? And we really want to make it about them. And then if they see value there, then as a secondary or third note, we can push our value. But I don't recommend it in the first time. And of course, it's just my guidance and advice, not something you need to follow. If you really feel like, hey, I got to push that in these messages, just tread lightly would be my recommendation. Hi, hope you're doing well. Thank you. I recently interviewed for an L4 role at Google with 2 teams, but wasn't shortlisted for the final round. Didn't receive any feedback though. I felt the hiring manager round went well. Do you think I should reapply later this year, or take a step back and work on building my profile first? Really appreciate your advice. I felt close to the finish line and maybe just came down to timing and luck. Also want to say thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for the question. Let's talk through it a little bit. So an O4 role. Okay, and I don't need to really know the particulars, but you can always push your recruiter for feedback. A lot of times you won't get it. The other thing is, I always want to create a great relationship with my recruiters. So I like ask them like, hey, how often can I check in with you? Is it okay if I check in with you quarterly? Because just reapplying for the same role in the next couple months, like they're not going to do anything with that. Usually, again, it's about a year that you're supposed to wait for the same position. If it's a different position, you can get after it right away. But I push my recruiter for feedback, which is unlikely that you'll get it, but I always ask for it. Why not ask? Worst case scenario is they say no, which they probably will, or they may not respond. I also say, how often can I check in with you? And if I don't hear back from you, I'm just going to default to what I feel is not aggressive, which is every few months to just check in with you. You want that internal person supporting you. And hey, if they didn't move forward, but the feedback was good, you're constantly reminding them that you're an available candidate. And this is just like business 101, right? And so we're treating the job search like it's, hey, like if we're searching for a job, it's like a business, right? And so I poke my primary target with my app, for example, is partnerships. So what do? I have a very methodical system for poking at people about building partnerships, and I never go dark on them. I just continue to poke and poke and poke. And at a certain point, I'll deprioritize people, but they're going to hear from me quite a few times before I do that. And so just a constant reminder to your recruiter every few months that you're out there and you're still looking, you're still interested. It's a valuable step, but I would ask for feedback, see if you can get any. With AI, that's a superstar. Then we can brainstorm wording, possible follow up. AI both makes a job harder and helps produce content, apps, and adds value at the same time. Yeah, and I think we'll see where the AI journey lands. And I mean, look, I don't know. I guess I'm a part of the problem if we look at it that way, right? Like I've built software that's AI native, right? And I believe in its capabilities. We'll find out if it takes us all down and we'll only time will tell in that. But yeah, for messaging, it can help us. And I would say help it help allow AI to help you ideate and use your own voice and words. It's a nice combination. I mean, I just rarely use I rarely use AI for value first because it's just like it's value and I just want to give it. But there's obviously a lot of other scenarios where we just want to use it to help craft our messaging. Hey, from Chicago. Thanks for being here. I've been applying and interviewing since May for go to market roles in the B2B SaaS and AI space. I've been noticing it's very competitive during these interview rounds. It's been tough landing a job. Any tips to help me stand out during these interviews that can give me an edge in this competitive talent pool? Love your content. Longtime fan, appreciate your content. Thanks so much for being here. I think it's so important that we understand like what job interviews are all about. Okay. And so this is where and I've talked so much about this, but the interview journey for me has been so unique from the cognitive psychology and science perspective. I just didn't understand how much this impacted job interviews. And so, one of my number one default modes in this, especially in competitive interviews, is using a system and a method where people can follow along makes it much easier for them to understand you and increase your likability. Now, if you've watched my content for a long time, you're probably following the STAR method, the CFAST method, and you're probably using those methods to help lead and guide you. So in a competitive job market, it really depends on our backgrounds. Like if our backgrounds have elite companies in them that are like or similar roles, we're going to get interviews through applying. But again, this is such a small percentage of people, right? Most of us worked at pretty normal companies are not super well-known brands before landing at a well-known brand, right? So we need to somehow get in the door. And again, I want to continue to drive, and it's so funny because these lives always tend to follow themes. And so much of standing out in a very busy applicant pool is that you really need to provide value. You need to show that you are different. And that value is probably getting to be more, right? Like my default mode is always like suggesting like, hey, reach out to second connections on LinkedIn, share a cool article, share a cool video, and make it very relevant to them. I mean, we may need to be like drafting up like basic business plans, whether that's a social media plan or whether that's a, just business opportunity plans. Like we're going to need to do more. And by the way, that's time well spent. Like the application time it's a wasted time. It's just we can see the ROI, and you see it again. Like we see this on LinkedIn time and time and time again. I applied to 100 jobs, 500 jobs, 1,000 jobs, and I didn't get a job. Well, it's like because you're applying. So people get really excited about you providing value first, and so anything you can do to do that is going to be helpful. And I know it's very broad and basic, but um, so let's tell the story. I'm a storyteller, and stories are impactful and remind us of what's true, right? And so like this is all the way back in 2010, but kind of similar scenario. Like the economy was really bad. I got laid off, fired from a job in December of 2009, the end of December. My last day was the 31st of December. Yep, good timing. And the economy was terrible. And so I spent 6 months in the first 6 months of 2010, and I just did the networking. I did the give first. So I went in for an interview for a recruiter position. Overall, it went pretty well. They brought me back. I had to actually like do cold calls, which was not a problem for me. So I did a bunch of cold calls, and they were kind of like lingering. So I went through all their social media, and I came up with like I don't remember what it was, a 1 or 2 pager on ways they could improve their social media efforts. I showed up in a suit. I delivered that to them in person. I said, hey, like I just wanted to show you guys what I put together. And I'm still intrigued and interested in the role. And so brought it in. HR looked at it. They said, give me a moment. They left the room. They went, they took it to the CEO. The CEO came back in and said, what are you doing on Monday? And I said, working for you. And they shook my hand and they gave me the job. And here's the crazy thing. They weren't going to. They had 2 open slots. They had already picked 2 other people that they decided to hire. I was a close third, I think. And I did that social media plan. It probably took me a couple hours, and I brought it in person, and they ended up hiring a third person, and they had the flexibility to do that. And I ended up working for that company for a couple of years. So that's that little extra effort that I put in to get me the job at the end of the interview. Now, is that going to really apply today? Well, it was for a startup. So, yes, for a startup, it still applies. Would that work at a company like a Google? No, probably not. They might not look at it, but these are the kinds of efforts that we're going to need to make in the current economic conditions. The job market is not good, and it's going to get tougher. And that's not to be gloom and doom, that's just to present the current reality of the job market. It's going to get tougher. And so, our ability to provide value and be extremely creative is essential and critical in today's job market. We just got to do more. And by the way, we can do more. Like it takes a long time to find 5 jobs and apply to 5 jobs. Find one job, find one company, find one person, and spend an hour working on that, because going through that process will also teach you quite a bit. I know that's a lot, but I hope it helps. What are the chances of getting back into G if I send negative feedback on the hiring? Do they keep track? Um, well, they keep track of all communication in their system, but it's like I just this is so tough, right? Because we don't want a big negative, but then how are we paying it forward? Like, what's that kind of law of reciprocity, right? Like, so I'm going to pay it forward. If I have a bad experience, I'm going to let that organization know. I'm going to let them know like the interviewer wasn't good, like because that interviewer might have done that to 5 people over the last month, 10 people, 15 people. They may just be going through the motions, and that's going to impact a lot of others. So I just always want people to provide feedback. If it wasn't a 45-minute interview, well, that's something else to know. Like, did they spend the full 45 minutes with you or not? Because if they didn't, they should have, right? And so these are just critical items. I'm such a pay it forward person, right? Like, if I have a bad experience, I want to share so that person can learn and grow. And if they don't look at it as a learning opportunity, well, that's a huge challenge. They need to understand that everything is a learning opportunity. We can always improve, and people's opinions matter. It's a lens. You can't tell people how to feel, and if they feel a certain way, it means that it's at least a perspective that they should consider. I know this part's tough. It's tough for everybody. Also, just for your info and your audience info, the ratings for interviews have now changed. It's not lean hire. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's just hire or no hire. Yeah. And like, and this is what I try to tell people too. Yeah, like I have been told that they've changed those ratings, and thank you for that because it is really, really helpful. Um, there should be, it's just, I don't know, like it's not always that black and white. And so it's like hire or no hire. It's like, oh yeah, that's I sometimes I'm not sure. And that could just be because I didn't have enough time, I didn't get enough data. And so making it so black and white. Again, they're always changing it. I don't know that I agree with that. I actually liked the old scoring system quite a bit. The original scoring system used to be a number scale, and that was really poor because what one person saw as a 3.5 didn't really align with what somebody else saw as a 3.5. So when they went to the more like feeling, I like that. And yeah, maybe you can remove some of those ratings, but like the middle kind of like leaning higher or leaning no higher, like those are important ratings because it means you have some level of confidence, but you're not fully confident. And to be black and white, it just makes it a little trickier, I think. Thanks for sharing that. I'm 75% feeling hope and excitement. I'm 25% fear based. Um, upon a casual call last weekend, cousin got a new job, but mentioned hiring freeze for the last for the rest of 2025 through 2026. Is this what you foresee? Um, I just think it's all about. Listen, it's a fantastic question. It's all about what is the progression of AI adoption, right? Like when these companies realize that they can automate roles and that they can automate out roles using AI, like will they do it and what's the pace? Uh, because they're going to do it eventually. It's cost savings, and all businesses run with a cost savings model. They're in business for profitability, and that's a really hard thing to say. So the automation component will definitely be a trend, and there's a lot of roles where automation is going to make things better. And like one of the crazy ones is obviously software engineers, right? Like that was the that's been the highest paying role basically since the 80s. Historically across the board, software engineers, yeah, we could say doctors or lawyers or whatever, but like software engineers across the board since maybe the 80s, and engineering, software engineering got really popular. That's been the highest paying job, and that job's going to be automated in the next year or two. And so it's just really interesting to think about how fast companies will adopt it. But once you see one company doing it and doing it well, it will be copied. So I do foresee that there will be less jobs moving forward. I can't see why there wouldn't be, but again, I don't know for sure. But we're just seeing the pace just really be super, super rapid. And being on vacation was a nice time to get away from some of the AI gloom and doom, because I think it's a little scary where we're headed. But yeah, I think that the future state of jobs is less jobs. And so it's just something we need to note. And again, not gloom and doom, just reality. And reality through my lens, right? The only reality we see is through our own lens. And so with Liz, with you, I would say, let's make that 100% feeling hope and excitement, because those are things that are real, right? And just removing that fear and getting that out of your mind as much as possible, as much as you can. You're welcome. What do I think about the H-1B? And will it help U.S. workers, especially for non-tech roles like recruiter? I mean, I'm not a fan. It's and I did put out a LinkedIn post. We want to stay away from politics, and I'm not going to talk politics, but I'm not a fan. I'm very, very supportive of the H-1B program. I'm very supportive of sponsorship in general. And I think there's something like, I've always kind of thought that if you went to school here, like you got a four-year degree or a 2-year master's, or you went and you did a full PhD program here in the US, I was always a fan and remain a fan of staple the green card. Like, you get that diploma, you come here, you add to our education system, you should get a green card. And again, that's just my opinion. Not everybody agrees with that, but 100K for H-1Bs, I mean, it's just going to make the H-1B process that much tougher. And there's so many families who have been here for a long time, who have dedicated a lot to this country, who are still sitting on H-1Bs, might have lost jobs on H-1Bs, and they call the US their home, and they might not be able to moving forward. And so it's a really, really tricky scenario. And I'm just I'm just not supportive of increasing these fees. I've always been supportive of sponsorship. And here's the other thing. Of course, this is like, I'm an open book, but we also got to be careful with really sensitive topics. But sponsorship is so valuable because it's a lens item. Lenses are valuable. We all are going through the world on a daily basis, and we're having all these moments of our own unique experiences, right? Like, and over time, those unique experiences become millions of experiences, billions of experiences, whatever we want to call them. And that's why each person has so much value. I really believe that, because they've experienced the world in their own very, very unique way. And I think that's what sponsorship provides for us, is bringing people in who have a very unique lens, and that lens adds value. I'll kind of leave it there, but I'm a fan of the H-1B program and the sponsorship programs in general, and it's sad to see what's going on. Hey Jeff, how do companies time hiring? Hey Jeff, hey Mark, sorry, how do companies time? Oh, sorry, this is my bad. Sometimes I have challenges reading. Hi, Jeff. How do companies time hiring and onboarding in Q4 for 2026 ramped kickoff? Well, so much of that, Mark, depends on company size, right? Like, these huge companies, they budget annual and fiscal are the same, and that's the vast majority, right? Most companies go on an annual year as their fiscal year. But I think there's also this misconception that we kick into the next year and everything's like tidied up and clean. I mean, at Google, at least, that was the biggest company I worked for, and it was a mess until like at least April, maybe May, to just get things aligned, get things moving, everything headed in the right direction. So it almost always took more than a quarter to do that. So, when we talk about timing and onboarding, and if you get hired in Q4, there's going to be that cutoff point, right? Once you get hired, if you get hired in the first week or two of December, you're not going to onboard till January. But to like have it fully like set up and ready to go, just because hiring is really fluid, it's just going to be all about like what that onboarding looks like for that individual team at that company, and then what's their onboarding schedule, their orientation schedule, if they're big enough to do that. But it varies greatly. But I think I went on a tangent, but the kickoff for the following year, it's like just oftentimes it's just not that clean. It's like business as usual, and it's these companies have these resets, but the reality is that it's yeah, it's more business as usual than anything else. I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, please let me know. Thanks, Jeff. Just for the record on I use it like a sandwich. I write a first draft, AI reviews, then can add conclusions, stronger role related vocab, fresh ideas, or even if I get the wrong idea. Sometimes realizing your prose can be misunderstood helps sharpen. So I use AI for editing. Then I do final polish, remove the M dashes, and ensure it sounds like me. And of course, you can always say, hey, please write this and remove all the M dashes, right? Because, like, whether we like it or not, like M dashes are gone. Like, you can't use them. If you don't know what an M dash is, it's the long dash. It 100% indicates that you are using AI, or gives the person the feeling that you are using AI. I never used M dashes before, but I would use shorter dashes. Removed all those from my written communication just so there's no misunderstanding that it's not me writing it. And yeah, Liz, I think I tend to communicate with a lot of brevity. It's short, it's snappy, and so a lot of times, again, just in general communication, I will not use AI. But yeah, if I'm crafting like a really specific partnership email that I want to send out to somebody to build a partnership, yeah, of course I'm going to run that through AI, and of course it's going to help me save time. I'm going to say here are the three concepts, and then I'm going to pull it in, and I'm going to just redraft it, and so yeah, I definitely recommend that people use AI to speed up their time. Of course, it's here. So by avoiding it or not using it, we're only hurting ourselves, nobody else, right? So absolutely, totally agree with you. What's the best way to prepare for a mock presentation? Okay, great question, Edward, as always. Practice with a friend can be helpful, but I keep iterating, improving it. Any tips on how to best prepare individually or with a tool would be appreciated. Okay, so yes, this is something I have very strong guidance with. So, whenever we're preparing for a presentation, there's two components really. So, there's the presentation deck itself. Clean, 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 right? So it has to be consistent. I want to see the same colors, the same font, the same size. I want massive consistency. I do not want to be distracted by seeing different colors, different fonts, different, like, the presentation deck should be clean and very, very few words. We cannot help but read words on a screen. We can't help ourselves. So, what's the perfect example? Well, some of us have significant others, like my wife, who always wants subtitles. If we watch a movie, she wants subtitles, especially if it's anything from the UK, like it's 100%. She needs subtitles. I don't need them. But the second they're on the screen, I'm just reading them. I can't help myself. So with the presentation, same thing. Too many words, and they're just going to be reading the words, and you're going to be talking, and they're not listening to you. So that's like a 25%. So the 75% is you're doing what you need to do. You do need to practice. And what I would say is practice with some people who have a general knowledge of your area and people who don't know anything about it. Because the people who don't know anything about it will be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then the people who do know something about it would say, hey, I would consider this or this. Obviously, professional coaching can really help on this, but we're not talking about that. You need to do, anybody who's going to do a presentation interview, I recommend at least 5 practice sessions. Friends, family, coach, professional, whatever you think, but 5. Because 5, you'll get really, really good. Now, the last piece, who is your audience? And so it's really critical to remember, you're speaking to a technical audience, a non-technical audience, or both. Do not alienate the person who's non-technical, and then the person who is technical. We got to put in a couple buzzwords to get them excited too, right? So your audience is important. I'm going to bring in what do we do this? We call it a bonus tip. The bonus tip is facilitation, not presentation. If I can bring my audience in and say, get to the end of the slide and say, A is a really interesting path for us to head down, and we can dive more into that. Or B is also interesting because of X, and we can dive more into there. Would you like me to dive into either of those areas in more detail? Because if your audience that you're presenting to is like, oh, let's talk more about B, you are talking about what they care about. So many people present and they just talk, and they're like, any questions? It's like, whoa, it's too much. Now, here's the last tip. Is this bonus tip 2? If they do engage with you, you still have to complete your presentation. So some things that they might mention or bring up, or you're diving deep and they continue to ask questions, you say, you know what, Sue, I think that's slightly, like, I think we should address that. And I want to make sure I get through my presentation. So let's table that. And I'm going to come right back to that as the first item. And you note it down and then you keep moving on, because we do want to talk about what they want to talk about. And we need to make sure that we don't get the feedback that we don't get the job because we got so derailed by their engagement that we didn't get through the presentation, which happened to one of my clients recently. Like, they were so engaged, but then the feedback was, oh, well, you didn't finish the presentation. It's like, well, but that's because you were engaged, right? So it's a delicate dance. But those are my recommendations. Let me know if you have more questions. Late to the chat. There is no late. Just happy to have you. Apologize. What is your opinion on not being offered after interviews in July with Google? You have an internal referral. Would you recommend waiting to reapply, or recommend a chance reapply and utilizing the referral while we're in hiring season? Yeah. So, Jordan, I think what I would recommend is, if it's the same exact role, it's unlikely that it's going to happen if it was July. But if it's a different role or even like an adjacent role, then yes, it's worth going for it. We always want to utilize our referrers as much as we can. They really open doors, and they're really, really helpful. But if it's the same exact role, they're going to want more space. So if you can find something that's similar but not the same exact role, that would be my recommendation. And you can just say, whatever, I'm just going to go for it anyway, which is fine. But just think about the space, right? So if it was July, or a couple months from that, and maybe if it was earlier July, now we're a few months, but they really want to see growth in your job and your interview skills. And so if it's the same role, they say about a year, sometimes it's 6 months or 9 months, but ultimately my recommendation is the same exact role. I would not use that referrer, but if it's something pretty close, I would. Okay, everybody. Wow, this was, first of all, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I'm going to, any questions that come in, I will take in just a couple minutes. Let's just talk a little bit about the fall hiring push, because we got away from that. And remember, this is always a general Q&A. When we have a little bit of downtime, we can talk about whatever the subject area was. So we're probably in that 10-week-ish push, right? Like, so actually, let me pull up the calendar here really quickly. So if we look at the calendar, so October, so December, yeah, it's kind of very clean, right? December 1st. So we're really looking kind of through December 12th. That will be the push. We'll take it through December 12th. And then after that, I mean, that's kind of the shutdown time, right? There's not going to be much that happens after December 12th. So we've got a good amount of time to really push. Let's go back to this calendar for a second. So if we're looking at that from a timeline perspective, we basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we got about 11 weeks. Okay. So we got 11 weeks. We got 11 weeks to really go get after it. Now, of course, of those next 11 weeks, the next 8 are going to be really the most critical. So what do we need to do for our fall hiring push? You know what's coming next. If you've been here before, let's pause. Let's wait for it. Your LinkedIn profile has to be optimized. It is just a critical missing piece of the puzzle It's like, why are 99.9% of LinkedIn profiles not optimized? It can't be that we don't know how to do it. I have a million videos on how to do it. There are a million other people who are telling you how to do it. Optimize your LinkedIn profile. You want to be found while you're taking walks on the beach, watching Netflix, eating pepperoni pizza, whatever you might be doing. So just optimize your LinkedIn profile. That's going to be a big part of the fall hiring push. Value first. Find one company, one person, once a day, and spend a little bit of time delivering something unique and specific to them that adds value. Repeat that all the time, and it's impossible that job opportunities won't come your way. Now, let's talk about the other things that aren't happening enough. Social events, back to in person. There is an energetic exchange. Humans are made up of energy. Got to get back to face, and that doesn't necessarily mean professional networking events. Sure, do those, but also do community service. Get out in your community. Do things where you're going to engage with people. You would be shocked at the doors you open. I was on a plane last night coming back from Honolulu, and on that plane, I sat next to a young man named Jacob, probably 22 years old, just graduated from San Diego State, and he was very engaging, very personable, asked fantastic questions, just engagement. So why am I talking about him today? Because he took that opportunity to really engage. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to send him some resources that might help him. So we've got to remember to get back to this face-to-face energetic exchange as part of our fall hiring push. And then I would say, challenge yourself to not apply. It doesn't mean applying all the time is the worst thing, but don't have high expectations from applying. It's too many people. You need to hit the timing. You need to have like the perfect scenario to get a job through a job application. So it's just something else to keep in mind. Okay, I'm going to go into wrap up mode. Thank you all so much for being here. I will be back next week. Again, I want to just kind of highlight, I know the audience is kind of starting to drop off, but I do want to highlight that as I hit 7 years on YouTube, which will be in October of this year, I am thinking about my YouTube journey and what's the future state. And that's something that I'm really going to be working through this week. And so I'll keep everybody updated on how much longer I think I'm going to keep doing this. So it's just something that I need to do some deep exploration into, and something I'll continue to keep people updated on. So let's move into our wrap up. Jordan, you are welcome. If you haven't, part of your journey, your success, it's just some interview practice. If that's where you're at, this is fully free for 7 days, and then it's a freemium model after those 7 days. You risk nothing and all the benefits of what's going to allow you to achieve your goals by trying out the app. So it's something I strongly recommend. I am still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one career strategy. That's resume and LinkedIn review, and then some of these networking tips as well. Still have that killer interview mastery course, and I did reduce the price. And about a year ago, I did update it for all the AI to optimize utilizing AI, because it really just needed it. For right now, we'll continue to go live at 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original long form content every Monday. And if I do, as I'm thinking about my YouTube journey, I'm definitely going to be pushing more shorts. They're definitely performing pretty well. And so that's something I want to continue to lean into a little bit more. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Edward. I appreciate everybody, whether you're here live or watching on the rewatch. Thank you so much for being here, and I will be back next week. Thank you.